Hi y'all, I have not posted on this channel in so long. Sorry the background is whack. I'm actually at the DMV waiting for my appointment to get my car registered because we've been flying free for like 6 months. But I was watching a video, I think it was a Jubilee video, where you had conservative men and trans men talking about masculinity. And this really sad thing I kept seeing come up where femininity was viewed as weakness. It kept being discussed in the context of weakness. And that makes me really sad because I agreed with that for so fucking long, to the point where I completely rejected my femininity for a while. I hated that about myself. I wanted to cut off all my hair because I viewed hair as feminine, which now I've come to see that hair does not define femininity or masculinity either. These are just physical traits. Femininity and masculinity are more so about energy. But if you did not know, I grew up in the LDS church. And so I was Mormon from the point that I was born until I was about 18. And I started to mentally leave a little bit later into 16. I started to have doubts, discuss it with friends, etc. And then by 18, I told my parents that I was leaving. But growing up in the church, and they'll say that this isn't taught, they'll say that it isn't taught, but it is. It is made very, very clear that femininity is weakness, because femininity in men, this is going to become such a tongue twister, is shamed. It's shamed. So they say, don't act like a girl, don't cry like a girl, whatever. And they equate all of these more sensitive qualities to women in a shameful way. So then when you're a little girl and you hear these things, you think of all of these things as bad. And to make matters worse, when you're a woman in the church, your entire value is based on your ability to have children and be a wife. Your entire your entire value is based off of your reproductive system. And so if being a woman is weak and being a woman is simply being a vagina in a dress, I wanted fucking nothing to do with that. I thought it was horrible. I hated it. I hated being a woman. I resented being born a woman so strongly. I hated fucking everything about it. I didn't want to wear dresses at all. There was a point where I don't wear makeup much these days. Like, I'm not right now because I'm just running errands. So why would I put it on? But I just used to wear a ton of makeup, and I completely stopped wearing makeup, and I stopped taking care of myself. What I was really doing was just stripping away all of the bullshit so I could feel a little bit more centered in just my being. So like a t-shirt and jeans and no makeup and hair in a ponytail, and it just made me feel a little bit more centered for a while I was figuring it out. And then I started to skirt a little bit more towards androgyny and masculinity. And then I started to get feminine again. And now we are where I am now, where I feel like I have a really good balance of both, where it's like when I'm a performer and I'm on stage, I'm covered in rhinestones and my hair's all done up and I've got the makeup. And then in my day-to-day life, I'll dress like a little skater boy. And both of those things are me. Both of those things are authentic, and neither one of them are weak. Neither one of them are negative or a sign of aggression or weakness in any way, shape, or form. But it took me a really long time to get there. And so it's sad for me because I don't think these guys realize the impact that they're having on their children and their biologically female children, especially because we all know that the gender that you're born as, or the sex that you're born as, isn't necessarily the gender that you will come to feel comfortable presenting later down the line, right? However, regardless of what gender you end up identifying with, shaming masculinity or femininity or both is a mistake, because each person is a blend of both. Some of us have more of one than the other, but we are a combination of both things. It's not like you're born and it gets split down the middle and the girl gets this and the guy gets this. That's not how that fucking works. And so when a parent shames a particular set of characteristics, say you're a little boy, right? Physically, all right? But on the inside, you're like, actually, I'm a girl, right? You just don't have the words to express that yet. But you feel inherently that you're more like your sister than you are your brother. And now you have your dad shaming feminine characteristics, and you feel inherently that's who you are. And so you hide these things even further, and it causes pain, and it causes resentment, and it causes depression. And when you see someone suppress these things, when you see someone suppress femininity, in themselves, that's when you see someone lash out with violence and anger. And the other way around is true too. When you suppress one of these things, we are not whole. Because a whole person is both of these things. We are made up of both of these things, both of these energies. You suppress one, you have an imbalance, and this other side takes over too much, and it hurts you because of it. Right? And I know a lot of people, like once we start to involve gender into this discussion, there are a lot of people that believe that the sex that you were born as is the gender you should identify as. Like your sex and your gender go hand in hand. Right? So they're a little bit more thoughtless when speaking to their children. So if we even remove that, if we remove trans and non-binary individuals, say you're shaming your son for crying or whatever, your daughter will pick up on that. Your daughter will 100% pick up on that and internalize that. And they will project that onto their future partners, and they will project it onto themselves. And it just creates this distortion within people where they are not healthy, they are not balanced, they are not accepting of themselves, they are not accepting of others. And these very normal emotions fester up inside of them, bubble up inside of them, and they turn into violence. They turn into anger and resentment and depression. And there is a reason why men are more affected by suicide. It is because they keep all of that shit in. It's because they are taught to be violent. Right? Violent play, violent toys, because that's masculine. You know, men tend to unalive themselves in more violent ways than women. And it is not because that is inherent. It's because it is taught. Men's solutions for arguments is fighting. Women's solution for arguments is words. I think on both sides you can get incredibly toxic. We need to find something in the middle. You can take these traditionally masculine attributes that can turn a little bit toxic, and same with the feminine attributes, and you can find a middle ground where you can be assertive but kind. Right? You can be honest but respectful. You can be vulnerable but not like oversharing, fucking crying on the ground in front of strangers. These things are possible because these things are myself. And it took me an incredibly long time, and I see it in my partner as well, even though I think both of us were both affected by the way that we were raised in the fact of like hyper-masculinity, and I was raised to be hyper-feminine, and those things do still impact us a little bit, but more often than not, we find ourselves meeting in the middle. We're a little bit of both, and we're not threatened by, I'm not threatened by anything confronting my femininity, and he's not threatened by anything confronting his masculinity, because that isn't the end all be all. That's not what I identify as. That's not what he identifies as, is fully masculine, fully feminine. We recognize that we're a blend of both. And so I know it's possible. And I know that both, having both of these things, whether you're non-binary or you're trans or you identify as a woman or a man or anything on the spectrum, it is so important that what is here inside of you, what is natural, be communicated in a healthy way, be expressed, whether it be your clothing or your hair or in writing or in music. Because if it's not hurting anybody, why are we so threatened by it? Is it maybe because we view that as a threat to us? We see someone thriving without this like really strict view of gender roles, and that scares us because we think our role that we attach ourselves so much to is going to be taken from us. It's not. But when you identify that strongly with form, with your role in life, you will never find true happiness because everything will be a threat to it. But when you exist and when you accept that just being, just existing, observing, going with the flow, working through the world and not against it, you will find happiness everywhere. You will find that you fit everywhere for simply being. And these things will no longer be a threat. It's like, well, maybe I don't understand that person's experience, but it's their experience. And it's valid, and that's fine. And this is my experience, and that's valid, and that's fine. So anyway, this was a little bit of a ramble, and a lot of people have talked about this many times before, but I also felt that I just kind of wanted to share my opinion, so I hope you enjoyed it. I love you. I post videos like once a year. But yeah, see you later.